and the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you would remain standing, please, for a moment of silence.
Let us take a moment to remember that 13 firefighters, 12 police officers, and 7 U.S. sailors that have died since our last board meeting. Also keep in your thoughts and prayers one of our firefighters who has been called to active duty.
Thank you. All right, coming out of executive session, we have a couple issues to handle regarding the fire chief's contract. Coming out of executive session regarding the fire chief's contract, need a motion to approve. We have somebody looking for.
Check, check, check.
Let's get closer.
Doesn't seem
Test, test, test.
motion. All right, coming out of executive session regarding the chief's contract, we need to have a motion to approve the chief's contract as reviewed in executive session.
I move.
Need a motion? No. There's nothing there. Need a motion? All right, there we go. Looking for a motion on the chief's contract effective July 1st as reviewed in executive session.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Second item coming out of executive session, the amendments to the memorandums of understanding with ASEA and IAFF Local 3690. Any discussion or a motion to approve?
I move to approve the MOUs as discussed in executive meeting for ASCA and, yes?
You mean the addendums?
Thank you, the addendums, thank you. The addendums to the MOUs for both the ASCA and the union.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
The third item, I believe we will save, that moves down into the bond discussion. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right, that moves us into our public budget hearing. We will open the floor to public comments. Comments are restricted to 3 minutes. There is a timer that will be over here with Fire Marshal Davis, and he will manage our speakers.
Board Chair, to be clear, this is for public comment on items that are not on the agenda.
This is the budget hearing.
Oh, the budget, I'm sorry, the budget hearing. I'm sorry, the budget hearing. Okay, correct, I'm sorry.
Okay, I have received a number of requests to speak. All of them seem to be wishing to address item number 4C.
Okay, so there's no public comment on the budget?
Let's see, I have a comment on C1. And the rest are on 4C. I believe that's all the same. I think C1 is, I do not have my agenda in front of me. Yes, they're all the same. They're all for 4C.
They're all
None
for
on the budget.
They're all
Yes.
for item C. They're all related to the bond.
Correct.
Okay. So we'll close public forum on the budget then. We'll be looking for any further discussion on the budget or a motion to approve and publish.
Board, just to be clear and remind all the folks, we've had multiple meetings on the budget. We've had multiple opportunities to discuss the nuances of the budget and all of its inner workings. We're certainly here with JVG if you have any other questions about any item in the budget. And so I hope you can hear me.
We cannot hear.
You cannot hear me? So sorry. I'll talk a little louder. So we've had many meetings on the budget. We've had lots of discussion. We've worked very hard to create a budget that meets the needs of our organization for the fiscal 2018 year. We have JVG here if there's any other questions by you. Otherwise, I think we've talked about the budget at great length at previous meetings. So staff has nothing else to present at this time.
Okay. No, I believe.
I have a comment
Okay.
to make, just to add on to what you have said. Just to add on to what you have said, Chief, for those of you who perhaps haven't seen our previous meetings, we've been discussing the budget for 5 months in quite some detail. And so in our last meeting, we voted to publish it. But that was with thorough investigation and thorough discussion prior to that.
Any other discussion from the board? Okay, be looking for a motion on the budget then.
I'd like to make a motion. I move that we approve resolution number 2017-04, approval of the fiscal year budget 2017-2018, including the salary scale.
And before we vote on that, I'd also like to make another comment in terms of that salary scale that you.
Hang on, point of order, I need a second.
Oh,
I'll second it.
Okay,
thank you.
discussion.
In terms of that salary scale, you know, there was, just by happenstance, the paper made a mistake, the Red Rock News made a mistake in talking about the COLA that was going to be issued as part of our budget. They put in 3%, and it's actually 0.3%. They did run a correction later on, but perhaps not everybody saw that.
If I could comment on that as well, that we do use Social Security as our indicator when we consider cost of living adjustments. That is our barometer that we use
Yes.
as well.
And that was 0.3%.
0.3, correct.
Yes.
Any further discussion? Okay, I have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Move on to a regular business meeting. So now, public forum. Do we want to wait until we get to the bond item, or would you like to let everybody
Correct.
speak?
This would be for anything that's not agendized, if
Okay.
anyone has to speak, not on the
So
agenda.
everything's,
I have received no requests to speak that are not related to item number 4C.
okay. All right, so move on to consent agenda. Anybody have anything they want to pull out of consent agenda, or is there a motion to approve?
I would like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda, items 1 through 8.
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, on to item C1. So we'll open the floor on C1. John?
Let's see, the first speaker I have here is Mr. James Spackman from Cornville. Are you?
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Please state your name and where you're from and begin your
My name-
address.
Let's see if I can adjust this. My name is James Spackman. I'm from Cornville, and I'm a taxpayer, and I do not like what I see happening, but I know you all have the best of intentions. The governing board has approved a spending of $26 million for capital outlays, 18 million of that through a bond issue, and another 8 million through future property tax increases. Since the 2012-13 fiscal year, the governing board has approved more than 78 million for employee wages and benefits, while approving only 7 million for capital outlays, less than 10% of personnel expenses. The approved capital outlays included 2.3 million for the new chapel area in Station 6. Much of that proposed $26 million capital outlay has been allocated in favor of higher wages and benefits, maybe because in favor, maybe because the Sedona Fire Department is overstaffed by 30 to 40% when compared to other neighboring fire districts. Now, the governing board wants taxpayers to pay the 26 million tab. As a U.S. taxpayer, I say we've paid enough. Thank you.
Next, I have Mr. Dwight Cater from Sedona.
Thank you. My name is Dwight Kadar. I live in Sedona. And first of all, I'd like to thank the chief for opening the dialogue on this with Bill Spring. Bill Spring is not here. He's vacationing in Coeur d'Alene. We thank you for giving us the opportunity to look inside the books. And we're not happy with what we see under your watch, sir. Not at all. And it goes for you people. You've been a rubber stamp. Take charge of this district. This is our money, folks. Thank you.
Mr. Ken Quayle.
Hi, my name is Ken Quayle. I live in Sedona. I was able to obtain a vehicle inventory, and I've noticed that is approved and purchased 3 F-150 for Station 1. 2 of them were for telecom, and 1 of them for administration. I'm here to tell you that I can't believe that you have the nerve to try to float a bond for $18 million for a department that is overstaffed and poorly run. And everybody is aware of this. Many taxpayers are very upset that you put a bond out for $18 million to try and catch up for the deficit that's been created. I thank you for this opportunity.
Mr. Thomas Graham from Sedona.
Board members, SFD personnel. Hi, Chief. I want to make just a few comments on SFD's newest station, station number 6 in the chapel. It was finished in 2014. The construction, vehicle, and apparatus cost totaled $2.5 million. Personnel and overhead costs for the last 2 years totaled $2.7 million. That's a total cost of $5.2 million. And according to SFD annual reports, total calls have been 455. That is less than 1 call per day. And this comes out to an average cost per call of $11,500. Does this board think that district taxpayers will decide that this is a good use of their money? Thank you.
Mr. Dale Casey.
Members of the board, Chief.
I have lived in Sedona for 25 years and have watched my property taxes continually go up every year. I'm on a limited fixed income, so every increase in the property taxes decreases what I have to spend in Sedona proper. The Sedona Fire District tax is the largest part of my property tax bill. This has to stop. Gentlemen, as members of this board, you are here to represent the citizens of Sedona. Your job as my representative is to make sure that my tax money is spent responsibly and is not wasted or spent foolishly. The following is an example of irresponsible spending. Our district chief is paid more than the Phoenix fire chief, and the population of the district is roughly 14,000 people. Our district chief earned a prior pension, is paid a current salary while earning a second pension, triple dips. Our district chief also lives in Scottsdale with family, but claims to live in Sedona. I am opposed to the bond issue. Thank you.
Mr. Warren Woodward.
Wow, this thing doesn't bend very well. So I have some numbers, some stats under Chief Kazian's watch. From 2012 to 2017, the area covered by SFD has not increased. The population protected has not increased. Consumer prices are up 7%. SFD operations employees are up 13%. SFD personnel expense are up 31%. SFD total expense up 47%. SFD property tax up 63%. So wages and benefits are increasing 4 times faster, and property taxes are increasing 9 times faster than general inflation. No bond.
Kat Bramblett from Sedona.
Members of the board, the fire department, and Chief Kazian, my name is Kat Bramblett from the village of Oak Creek. The May 3rd issue of the Sedona Red Rock News had a wonderful article about the fire department. I'm sure you all saw it. But it also had a scary perspective, a guest editorial, about the certainty of more fires. And the next big one, fear-mongering, is going to be here. Another article implied that the bond, if it occurred, would be a citizen initiative, and the process would be balanced and fair, where everyone gets a say. The author was referring to the governing board and the Citizens Advisory Committee, who represent their constituency, and that would be we, the people who live here. This is partially true. Only 2 current members were elected back in 2010. The other 3 have been appointed. The recall election in 2012 notwithstanding, there's been no general election for the board since 2010. Apparently, there's some preference to keep the members on the board. The board, with a few minor exceptions, has voted unanimously on all the spending brought before them. So much for being good stewards. It's more like you're being a rubber stamp. Thank you.
Gene McCarthy from Sedona.
Actually, it's the village of Oak Creek. Members of the board, chief, Fellow citizens, my name is Eugene McCarthy, and I live in the village of Oak Creek. Been there for about 3 years. And guess what? I'm a taxpayer. I was a taxpayer from where I came from. I'm a taxpayer here. I'm also have a history of 36 years in public service. That means the police department, the fire department, and federal agencies. My 30 years with the Los Angeles County Fire Department introduced me to a variety of departments, small, medium, large, throughout this country as I traveled. I'm also a member of the Citizens Advisory Committee. And as Citizens Advisory Committee, we spent months, and it was advertised, the meetings and when they were going to be and so on, with information that's vital to you, absolutely vital for you to make a decision. I didn't see anyone in the audience. I think we did have one. We had one, and he left in mid-meeting. I'd like to say to you that as a firefighter, when you go to work in the morning, you have no idea how your day is going to end. None whatsoever. Many of us who've been that long in the service have lost brothers and sisters. Because a station only has a few calls doesn't mean that the potential isn't there. And here you have vast potential for major brush fire amongst homes. I recall 500 homes being burned, 300 homes being burned in Malibu fires because we couldn't get a handle on it, and I came from one of the largest departments in this world. So whether you're in a small station, medium-sized station, and when you drive by and you're looking at an engine parked in there, that doesn't mean that you got fire service. You have to have personnel, you have to have the right training, you have to have the right equipment, the right kind of station, the right kind of communications, and so on, or you're destined for problems. You may be destined for problems. So I ask you, give consideration to this bond. It's your department. It's your community. Thank you.
Mr. Bruce Bramblett from Sedona.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and Chief Kazian, and other members of the department. My name is Bruce Bramblett. I live in the village of Oak Creek, property owner out there. Chief Kazian, I was president of a Boys Club meeting a few weeks ago, held at Reds, where you were guest speaker, and appreciate that. You stated that you, your wife, and daughter reside in Scottsdale because you're unable to find a suitable school in this area for your daughter. You keep a place here for work and then return to Scottsdale, as I understand it. My point is that you, like most of the fire district employees, do not reside in the district, and many, if not most, could not be here in the case of a major emergency or in the instance of an all-call in the recommended 30 minutes travel time. And those that do not live in the district, of course, pay property taxes here. Anyway, that's thank you for your time.
Mr. Jack Pearson from Sedona.
Hi, I'm Jack Pearson, a taxpayer. In the 1990s, the Uptown Station number 4 had serious structural problems that were never addressed. A 2007 committee pointed out the same needs for renovation and replacement of buildings as now, but nothing was ever done. Instead, they built more fire stations, a boom to the local construction industry, bought 2 $600,000 10-story fire engines, plus a $3,200 drone, and lots of telecommunications equipment so they could become a regional communication center. Thank you.
Christine Lutz.
Good afternoon, and thank you for letting me speak. I have been living in Sedona for 16 years, and I love it here. And I have the utmost respect for firemen and the police. I want you to know that. But also, we as taxpayers and people who live here, we have to live within a budget. And many of us are retired, and we only have so much money coming in, and it doesn't go up. And it was a lot of things have been shown to me from the research that's been done that the board has approved a 17 million budget for the fiscal year of 2017 and 18, and that's an increase of 1.1 million, almost 7% higher than the prior year. This budget is 5.4 million higher than the fiscal year 2012-2013 actual spending, an increase of 47%. The proposed budget includes additional support staff positions, and we kind of don't understand why. I know that if an emergency happens, you're needed, and we all want you, and there's no doubt about that. But it is a small community, and the emergencies here are really, really at a limit compared to the bigger cities. And I thank you for letting me speak.
Jim McCabe.
Good afternoon. My name is Jim McCabe. I've been living here 7 years. I'm a full-time resident of Sedona. I honor and respect the great job and service that the SFD provides to the community. What I don't honor and respect is the mismanagement of funds by the governing board and Chief Kazian. More disturbing is that they are not taking responsibility for the financial mess created. It's not like you couldn't see the necessity for these repairs coming. It's just that you didn't prioritize them. If you would, I don't think we'd have the structural damage and problems that we have now. These buildings could have been renovated and not replaced. I think what we're talking about here, I'm definitely against this bond. What we're talking about here is accountability. I worked for a corporation or corporations my whole life, over 30 years. We were accountable to the shareholders. You're accountable to the taxpayers. And I don't see any of what I've read, heard, or see accountable to the taxpayers who live here. I'm insulted, and I think that you need to do a better job.
Jerome Gatto.
My name is Jerome Gatto. I'm from Sedona. My comments, and I thank you for listening, are in focus to fiscal responsibility. Those fiscal responsibilities stretch to our district employees, some of which are battalion chiefs, captains, and a secretary are making over $100,000 a year. Some of our employees are not even living in the district, and as such, they won't be receiving any of the increases that may take place in a bond issue. And I ask you to carefully think about your fiscal responsibility to the taxpayers and the people of Sedona. Thank you.
David Blauert.
Chairman, Chris Kazian, board. As you know, I've been here before on that side of the table, was recalled from actions I was doing during that period of time. But I got some good questions here because I know the rule that the law has changed. We see our fire trucks and ambulances parked in front of the grocery stores all the time. It's illegal in the state of Arizona to carry food in ambulances and fire trucks. And also, we've been reported 3 refrigerators. Where are we? I mean, what's going on here, guys? Let's try to be responsible. And that's a lot of waste. And I hope you get a hold and enforce the law at least. Thank you.
Andrea Cater.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. I'm Andrea Kadar. I live in Sedona. I'd like to address calls for service in 2015 and 2016. Let's talk about that for a minute. Station 1, which is here, Station 3, which is in the village, handle approximately 75% of the approximate 12 calls per day. 3 out of 4 of those calls are for emergency and transport services. Station 4, which is uptown, and Station 5, which is in Oak Creek, Camden, handle less than 2 calls per day. And yet the board wants taxpayers to spend almost $9 million to demolish or relocate and replace them. Ladies and gentlemen, $9 million of our taxpayer money. I'm a reasonable woman, but I don't think that's reasonable. I will vote no.
Mary Morris.
Thank you for holding that. I'm Mary Morris. I live in the village of Oak Creek, and I'm a Sedona Fire District taxpayer. When I first heard the rumbling that the Sedona Fire District was looking into submitting a bond issue in addition to the current budget, and since my property taxes have increased dramatically in the last few years, I decided to do some research. And what I found was disturbing as far as how our expenses compare to other districts that are comparable to ours in Yavapai County. What we looked at was the fire district populations. Sedona is relatively small with just 22,000 compared to central Yavapai with 55,000, to Verde Valley with 21,000. So that was one factor considered. Square miles covered, pretty comparable. Sedona, 168 square miles, 150 in central Yavapai, smaller in Verde Valley, 104. The 2016 budget for Sedona, $16 million. For central Yavapai, who has more than twice the population, $16.7 million. And Verde Valley is smaller, of course, at 4.6. The amount of budget against personnel expense was $12 million for Sedona and 12.1 for central Yavapai. The number of employees, 94. In Sedona, 126 in central Yavapai, 43 in Verde Valley. The cost per employee, $127,000 in Sedona compared to $96,000 in central Yavapai and $97,000 in the Verde Valley. Calls per day, respectively, for Sedona 12, central Yavapai 30, Verde Valley 7. The cost per person that the Sedona taxpayers are paying is double to triple the cost per person for fire services versus comparable districts. This doesn't make any sense. I can't urge you strongly enough to stop burning our money, withdraw this excessive bond, and bring spending under control. Thank you.
Diane Simmons.
Good afternoon. My name is Diane Simmons. I live in the village of Oak Creek. Beginning in late January, the Sedona Fire District's media campaign has been a snow job with a coyness about whether or not there would even be a bond. This immediately struck me as misleading, since SFD has revealed it had already committed $25,000 for a citizens advisory committee and $57,000 for architects' consulting fees. This campaign has been helped by the Sedona Red Rock News. The bond issue sounds like a done deal to me, but I'm still voting no. Thank you.
Cynthia Hauserman.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Cindy Hauserman. I live in Uptown Sedona. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for the excellent and efficient manner in which you've come to the rescue of the citizens and families in my neighborhood in Uptown Sedona many times. Also, the scholar athletes who I have coached, and we've had to call for help to the high school. My husband and I have raised our family here and have served our community in various fashion over the years. Our neighborhood is very close-knit, and we take care of each other. We break bread together. We have block parties together. And we rely upon station number 4 when we're in distress. And when we dial 911, that's who comes running, thankfully. We have a lot of elderly in our neighborhood as well, and there are times, weeks, where they have to call week after week after week. And we've all been very thankful for the fire department. Our family has lived in various cities across this great country, and we have never paid so little in property taxes. We come from the East Coast. Well, and you also see that your services, education, everything we want to build a better America comes from our tax money. Listen, hey, I'd much rather be the person that pays than the people that are getting tax breaks who don't even need it. If I may, honestly, please.
Order. Let her speak.
I mean, just a little decency and manners. We want to contribute to our community. We want to invest in America. We want the right to vote for ourselves on this bond. Thank you.
Gretchen Vorbel? Vorbeck, I'm sorry.
I would like to suggest, I live in the village of Oak Creek, that we consider what type of human being decides to work at the fire district. I would also like to suggest that there's something more important than money in our lives. It is a fact that our taxes are lower than many other counties and states in America. I wasn't going to speak because I have a reason to be sad. My daughter died of smoke inhalation. The firehouse was closed. That was 3 minutes from her house. The other fire department had to come, and my daughter Bridget died on the way to the hospital. I would like to suggest that you stay and listen to whatever facts are presented, and you find out what is true before you make a decision. I heard, and I don't know if this is true, but I want to know if it's true, that if someone has a house that's around $600,000 in this area, that their taxes will go up $100 a year. I don't know if that's true, but I want to find that out. And I really feel badly for people that have such hardened hearts that they don't think of a human life before they think that a fireman might be eating lunch in a truck or whatever it is. When I was driving from New England to here, after my daughter died, I was sitting outside of a restaurant weeping on a bench. A fireman I didn't know came up to me and he said, "What is bothering you? What's wrong?" And I just, every now and then, my daughter died 11 years ago. Every now and then you cry when your daughter has died. He asked me to explain the situation with Bridget's death. And I explained it, and he wanted me to know. He said, "What's your name?" I told him. And he said, "Gretchen, I want you to know your daughter did not suffer. She died of smoke inhalation. She was asleep. The smoke carried her away, and she died peacefully. If she had burnt in a building, I don't know how I could live with that. So I just want you to think. I'm not mad at you because I understand people get facts from other places, but please Inform yourself. Don't get angry and leave. Please. Think of even your dog. Would you want your dog to die in a house fire? Isn't it worth $100 extra a year or whatever it is? And a child. My daughter died at 42. She was a wonderful woman, and that's one reason that Station 6 is there, because I was director of operations of the recall, and I knew the chapel area needed to have a fire station, even if one person a year needs it. Okay, goodbye. I'm through. Okay, thank you.
Wendy Tanzer.
My name is Wendy Tanzer. I live in the village of Oak Creek. Board, as you know, I was a member of the Citizens Advisory Committee, whose representative has already made its recommendation of approving a general obligation bond in an amount not to exceed $18 million. The content of this notebook is an overview of what we reviewed before reaching our conclusion. Clearly, we covered a great deal of territory before making that recommendation, and our reasoning was and remains sound. For both the good of the district and for the good of the taxpaying citizens. Not unlike a mortgage, this bond will permit capital expenditures to be spread out over the life of the bond issuance. At the same time, it ensures that future residents pay their fair share for the benefits they will enjoy. This district would not be in the position it's in now had prior board decisions been to increase capital reserves instead of artificially lowering the mill rate, spending down the district's entire capital reserve, and virtually crippling its ability to meet all of those should-have-dones that are floating across the internet. Sadly, the district is in this position, and the steps necessary to alleviate the financial predicament have been parsed ad nauseum. It is incredibly unfortunate that so much misinformation is already circulating throughout the district in what I trust will be a futile effort to once again drag this amazing fire district and its personnel through the muck. Personally, I find the intentional misrepresentation of what this district is trying to accomplish thoroughly reprehensible, but sometimes there's just no accounting for the depths to which some people choose to sink in an attempt to prevail. If this weren't such a serious matter, I might find it amusing that so many of the same opinions that brought about this predicament are once again attempting to sway our voters with abjectly false information. It would serve those people holding those opinions well to remember their agenda was rejected not once, but twice before. First, during a monumentally and historically successful recall, and then when they were soundly defeated in the ensuing special recall election. The bond decisions you are about to make here tonight are not easy and will affect our district for decades to come. It is incumbent upon each and every one of you to make the best possible. Hello. Testing. Justin, I word out. Mostly you don't need a mic with me anyway. Thank you. Thank you. It is incumbent upon each of you to make the best possible decision for our fire district in spite of whatever the fallout may be. I sincerely believe it is the only way to guarantee the financial future of this district against any repeat of decisions that might threaten its financial stability, regardless of who occupies the chairs you now sit in. The district needs are what...
Gotta cut you off.
What?
Gotta cut you off.
Oh, can I finish my sentence?
One sentence.
The district needs are what they are. It's either a bond or the mill rate. Please make the right call. Thank you.
I do not have any further applications to speak. Does somebody else? No? Those are all the applications that I have to speak.
Okay, thank you.
Board Chair, I'd like to comment on a couple things that were said specifically about me, my management, and a couple other things, if you could indulge me in that.
Yep.
Citizens here today, those that'll be watching, I can tell you I sat in this room in 2012, room packed just like this as I recall. Lots of interested folks in what was happening here at the fire district. To see you here today and be engaged in what we're doing is what responsible government's all about. That is what I go to sleep on every single night, is responsible government, transparent government, open and honest, good government. That is me. Some of the things said today, a little concerning that I've had bad management. I'll leave that for all of you to decide. A few have expressed your thoughts on my management. But I got to tell you, there's a thing called alternative facts. I heard about this once. I think it was on Fox News. Emails or videos. There's some stuff being circulated that I saw some of you put together. I appreciate that. Many of the comments that are in there are not true. Not even a little true. That's problematic for me. We're trying to run a fire district here, and it's based upon trust. And we can't trust each other if we don't talk to each other. I haven't seen many of you calling. None of you have called me. None of you have emailed me, except for Mrs. Kadar, who I spoke to and exchanged an email with. I was asked not to call her at all. But this here is a little counterpoint to what you have. Number one, many Sedona Fire District employees do not live in Sedona. Matter of fact, they don't even live in Arizona, but they live in California. Who's heard that one? Raise your hand, please. There's a follow directions moment. I know you've seen it because it's on the video. I'm going to give you some facts here. We don't have anybody that lives in California. Not one, zero. So whoever had that fact, I'm sorry, but there is no one in Arizona or no one at the Sedona Fire District that lives in California. Let me know who it is, and I'd be glad to find out and verify that with you. I heard that the gentleman spoke today. I said that none of us live here in the city, in the fire district, in the area. Matter of fact, the video says that 90% of our employees do not even live in Yavapai or Coconino County. Who's seen that fact? Anybody? You guys are done with that game? Okay, well, here's the deal. 71% of our employees live in Coconino County, 14 live in Yavapai, 14 live in Coconino County, and only 15% live in Maricopa County. In fact, 23% of our employees live in Sedona Fire District. Who knew that fact? Anybody? Back there, I got one in the back, thank you. I feel like I'm auctioneering right now. Someone mentioned today too, thank you very much, I make more than the Phoenix Fire Chief. And it's actually even posted I make $228,000. That'd be a nice raise. It's not my salary. My salary is actually coming up in this fiscal year with the board that just approved the budget is $158,442. The Phoenix Fire Chief makes $185,328. My math tells me I make less. Thank you for letting me know I live in Scottsdale. I don't live in Scottsdale. I appreciate that. I did speak at the Boys Club. I never would have said that I live in Scottsdale because I don't live in Scottsdale. I don't own a home in Scottsdale. I'd be sleeping in someone else's house. It's frowned upon, especially when you're married. My house, I have a house in Sedona. It's at 40 Mountain Shadows. Come by anytime you like. Have coffee. Glad to talk to you about all the issues you're concerned with all day long. But I'll tell you what, my wife and kids do live in Phoenix. We do own a house there too. I bet some folks have more than one house. But I'm committed to this community and I live here. This is where I live. My wife will tell you she lives in Phoenix. She's allowed to do that. But I live here. And sometimes on weekends I visit my wife, and sometimes she comes and visits me. But we live together on weekends, and it's a little bit of a split. So let's just be clear about that. I don't live in Scottsdale. I don't live in Phoenix. I live at 40 Mountain Shadows Drive, West Sedona. I heard somewhere that I was triple dipping. I think I heard that today too. I'd like to know what triple dipping is. I don't know that phrase. I can't find it anywhere. I've heard a double dip. Double dip is typically when you work somewhere, you retire, and then work again at the same place you're collecting a pension or a paycheck or whatever you're getting from. That's a double dip. I don't know what a triple dip is. I worked 21 years in a beautiful community in the state of Illinois, And I was brought to this place and hired by this gentleman here, Mr. Dybel, that gentleman over there, Mr. Blauert, this gentleman over here, Mr. Montgomery. And I took a chance to come to this beautiful community. I sat in that chair right over there and expressed to everyone how excited I was to come to this beautiful community with engaged folks, because we do great work providing emergency services to our community. And I left the beautiful job for no reason other than to come be part of this community. Apparently there are some that are concerned about my ability to manage and lead. I guess the hiring process should be reviewed. I'm not eligible to collect a pension, in case anyone's really keeping up on my finances, until 2020. September of 2020 will be the first time, if any of you describe getting a pension somewhere and being employed again as a double dip. So in 2020, September, I'll be really excited to get my first pension check for working 21 years. I left my job with a 9-year hiatus with nothing holding me up except the work that I do here. Extremely proud at what I do. I'm also not going to collect another pension no matter how long I work here. I'm in a defined contribution 401A program. That is what I get. It's not another pension, so I will not have two pensions. I would love to have two pensions. I will not have that. I hope people are paying attention to what I'm saying here. These are facts that I will verify, have been verified, and I'm saying it today, and it's on tape. Thank you, Mr. Dybel, for recording this. My secretary right here, my administrative executive assistant right here, Tricia, you guys know her, 23 years at Sedona, given a lot to this community. She would love to make $100,000. She came in asking, where's my raise? She's $31,000 short of that. Actually 30, I'm sorry, I don't want to overestimate. $30,000 short of that. So I don't know who got that fact that she makes $100,000, but she's wanting to know because she wants to find out how she's been gypped for that money. She wants her money back. And we have 52 vehicles. I saw the vehicle inventory piece there. We do actually have 52 units that are insured by our insurance company. That means that they have tires on it. Only 40 of them actually drive. 4 more of them are all-terrain vehicles, so they also drive technically. 5 people are assigned take-home vehicles as part of our response. The fire marshal right there lives in West Sedona, just up the street from me. The village of Oak Creek, the assistant chief, he takes one home. I take one home. Right there, Ed Mazulis, he takes one home. He's the division chief. He lives in Camp Verde. In case you wonder where he lives, he doesn't drive to Phoenix with that, but he lives in Camp Verde. And as part of our response with all of our mutual aid neighbors, the chief of Copper Canyon's in the back, we utilize that response. The chief here lives in our town, has many times been called to ask to help us out, and he drives his personal or his work car to Sedona from Copper Canyon. The Verde Valley Fire Chief that was on your sheet, he lives in the village of Oak Creek. He drives his car. So we have a lot of people driving cars that are here to respond in case of emergencies, but only 5 of us take cars home. None of us use them for personal vehicles, except in my contract it is allowed. So if I have to do something as the fire chief, I am allowed by policy and contract to use mine in a personal manner. The other folks drive to and from work, and when emergencies arise, or if they're available on a call, or maybe needed for a response. I think I got one more for you in case you aren't sure. I guess we covered that already. Mrs. Cooperman was kind enough to take care of this one for me, that the 3% was not a 3% raise. It was a 0.3, a simple phone call. Hey, Chief, you guys really getting 3%? No, we're getting 0.3. That would have been cleared up and saved a lot of headache, because I saw a lot of people writing about that on all those social media places. I'm passionate about this place. I'm passionate for the truth. I'm passionate at what I do. I was passionate when I came here and I spoke. And Mr. Lauer, when you called me to take this job, I said I won't come until I speak to the community and make sure I'm going to be welcomed and that it's the right place for me to be. And it was 5 years ago, and it is today, and it will be tomorrow. This bond initiative is not for anybody but you, the community. It's not for me. It's not for the staff. It's for the community. Community always comes first, will always come first, and I hope and wish that each one of you will call me, will set up a meeting. We can meet at my house, we can meet at your house, we can meet at a restaurant. I will talk to any of you, and I'll answer your questions. This is the first 8 of alternate facts. I heard many other things today. I got my notes over here. I just want to be clear. If there's anything I missed here. I think there's enough facts out there that The folks that spoke, I highly recommend you call me because I'll correct your facts. I didn't find many of them to be actually correct or fully correct, and I'd be happy to share with you the right numbers so you can at least calculate and get the right percentages and the right details to decide how unhappy you are with me as the fire chief. And I will begin to put things out to whoever gets them, or at your meetings you'd like to request me to come and speak. I'd be happy to do that. I'm honored to be your fire chief. I can tell you that I work very hard each and every day for each and every one of you. And the people that work at Sedona Fire are equally dedicated to each and every one of you.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for coming and for your input. We're going to move on. I hope that maybe you'll stay, so we're going to do a presentation on the bond, and so you can see what is involved. And contrary to some things some people have said, no decision's been made. Tonight is the night we will hear the final presentation and make some decisions on whether or not it's appropriate and what portions of it may or may not be incorporated. So with that said, we'll move into the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board, audience. As mentioned, this $18 million bond, where did it come from and how did we get here? Months and months of meetings, tons of technical data, lots of research, an abundance of, am I getting better? An abundance of consideration was put into what the number should be. As some mentioned today, not to exceed was the number that was recommended. Not to exceed has to be $18 million. There's a lot of numbers between 0 and 18 million. And I don't think this board is committed to that number yet from my knowledge. So we're here to talk about what each of those numbers means. I've come up with some alternate solutions for you. I can tell you that there are financial impacts to every decision that we make, pro and con. Working on a better microphone for me. I probably wore this one out too, I guess. I'm good at that. Again, the goal is transparency and good financial stewards of our budget and our mission. And I'm sorry to those people that don't think that we've done that, but we're here to tell you we're trying. We have $26 million worth of capital needs we identified through our lengthy process. I kind of broken these down into some high priorities, primary priority and secondary priority. So high priority, immediate need for completion, and it directly impacts emergency services. Primary priority, completion will help the emergency response, but is subordinate to those high priority issues. And the secondary priorities, things should be considered when funding is available. The completion of that project will enhance operations and efficiencies, but are not realistically going to impact emergency responses. Station 4 in Uptown, we've talked about, this is a high priority, must be done. We talked about tearing down the building. We talked about the site challenges that we have there and the cost estimates that go with it. I'm kind of going fast because we've done this before. If anyone in the audience has a question or wants me to slow down, I'd be glad to stop and slow down. So please don't take my rapidness as a disrespect for the information. Is everyone okay with that? Yes? Station number 5 in Oak Creek Canyon, we've abandoned that station and moved to Slide Rock Station, or a location where we'd like to partner with Arizona Parks. There's some challenges on that site as it relates to egress and ingress on 89A, some sight lines, and certainly being on the state park will create some concerns and possible challenges with multiple government agencies working together. Primary priority really needs to be done. Station 3, we've got some structural and engineering issues and mechanical issues at Station 3. While not immediately a hazard today, can't be ignored in the long term. We're talking about a 10-year capital plan, so we're looking out 10 years and understanding where those needs are going to be. And we see that there's a need there. Station 3, Village of Oak Creek, renovation to firefighter quarters. We're looking at some quicker access and some response issues as it relates to that, as well as just creating some ADA and other things in that facility there. Station 1 in West Sedona, the firefighter quarters area, updating that, creating a better access for emergency responses. Pretty much important. The firefighter workspaces, and some HVAC issues that we've been having trouble with for quite some time, trying to get that right. A secondary priority really is West Sedona maintenance facility. We have an opportunity to relocate our maintenance facility and create some efficiencies. However, again, that's a secondary priority funding need. And then the administrative office, renovation of the offices and the administrative to create some efficiencies and better workflow for the efficiencies that you all spoke to today. Again, secondary priority. If funding's available and it works, there could be benefit from that. Out of fleet, we look at fleet, there's about $7.7 million worth of capital fleet needs. That's everything with tires on it, basically, as well as some equipment, so air packs, things like that. Telecommunications, we have a very complex telecommunications system based upon all those mountains that we love to look at. And so keeping sure that that's working properly and we're planning and forecasting appropriately is really important to be able to communicate on the emergency fire ground and 911 systems. So the fire districts work hard to be fiscally responsible. Each and every day we spend every dollar with respect to the person who helped provide that dollar. For those of you that can't believe that, I ask you to please come by and talk to staff, talk to me, and understand that every purchase order we do and we talk about is it needed? Why is it needed? What if we don't do it? And we look at those things. Our plan is always to be focused on providing the most efficient and effective emergency services in our community. We heard a person speak today about her daughter who passed away when a firehouse wasn't available 3 minutes away from her daughter. It's not fear-mongering. Please do not take that as fear-mongering. The fact is we have emergency responses. We have a fire station strategically placed in our fire district up and down 89A and 179 so we can create efficient responses to you and your emergency. Station number 6 in the chapel, I'll give you one more that wasn't on my top 10 list there. It says 225 calls. It clearly says in our annual report that the calls that those little buttons, all dots all make, are the calls that initiated in that still area. 225. Station 6 actually responded to over 600 calls last year. That's the number of calls they actually went to. They weren't all in their still district because that station down the street might not have been available, so that one had to go, or they needed multiple units. So 600 calls is the number for station number 6, in case you're looking. It's more than that. Don't quote that exact number. I'll get it to you if you're interested. I'll be here after the show. So why consider a bond? I think some folks talked today about that, board. It's amortizing that cost over a long period of time. It's sharing that cost over a longer period of time. The thought that we're looking at a bond and considering that is not necessarily that we've not done anything in the last 5 years. As a matter of fact, I'd like to take you down memory lane a little bit. And I recall in the last 5 years, we just came off a pretty good recession. We had a recall election, change of a board. We built station number 6. We relocated our comm center. By the way, reloading that comm center took away about $3 or $4 million at least in having to build that building. And we saved about $400,000 a year in employee costs. So anyway, we did that. That was pretty big. And then we started really working on this 10-year capital plan and how the bond or funding of our capital needs was going to happen best. And that's why we sit here before you today and offer up a chance to talk about a bond as one of the vehicles that can be used to purchase long-term capital needs of a fire district. I want to be very clear. We have the ability to strictly increase your mill rate at the vote of 5 board members and buy these things and put it in the mill rate. There is some space for that. The long-term plan, that may not be the best idea, but with 5 votes, we can make that happen without voter input. I think that the beauty of America is being able to have this vote in front of the people and decide if this is what the community wants or does not want. That's why we're considering a bond. Board, I have a couple options for you. So do you have any questions so far? I think this is most stuff we've covered, but do you have any questions? Okay. I took a $9.9 million bond option. $9.9 million is a planned number, meaning that it's Station 4, Station 5, and Station 3 structural. It adds up to $9.901 million. If you were to consider that, that certainly would pay for those 3 projects that are on our 10-year capital plan. There's a lot of small numbers. We got Mike LaValle here, by the way, from Stiefel. if you have any questions about bonding and how this works. So we've got a resident expert here to help us. The cost to a taxpayer. In a $9.9 million, someone had the question, I forget who it was, that asked about how much per 100,000. In a 9.9, so someone that's taking notes here, a $9.9 million bond for per 100,000 is $14.75. I'm sorry? Of assessed value too, mine. Don't forget, the assessed value is typically, or is always, lower than what your cash value is. So $14.75 for the residential. I'm only going to talk about residential just to make it less confusing and less numbers, but we certainly have commercial and vacant land, which are the three categories of property. So $14.75 or $1.23 a month, that would cost you per 100,000. This just shows you the mill rate at the end of the day. I just want to point out to you there, the red bars are the capital purchases that will need to be made because it's not being bond funded. And the line going up is our mill rate. And while it's up on a pretty sharp angle there, it puts us pretty close to 325. It looks like it's 318 is what it says there in year 27, fiscal 27. I pull out a $1.29 million bond option. I'm sorry, a 12.9, my apologies, 12.9. And that would fund the Station 4, Station 5, the structural at 3. So we add two things, firefighter quarters at Station 3 and firefighter quarters at Station 1. Those are the emergency response efficiency pieces that we talked about. This is all bricks and mortar here, $12.9 million. That's the bond payment schedule. Let's be clear also, folks, there's a 20-year bond. So the 20-year bond gets paid. We fund the bond, and that begins the 20 years of which that will be paid back. And then if 5 years later we fund another bond, not another vote, but a dispersal of money in this, then that will be paid back at 20 years. So if we fund something in the last year of our 10-year bond, it would actually straddle almost 30 years of repayment. Does that make sense, board? So that's what these different categories are doing and showing. So in this case, in a $12.9 million bond, $16.54 per 100,000 or $1.38 a month per 100,000. So here's that line again. You see those red bars go a little bit different because more stuff is being funded by the bond. At the end of the day, our mill rate's at $3.19. 13.8. Station 4, Station 5, Structural 3, Station 1, crew quarters, and $2 million worth of that 7.7 capital fleet issues that we have. And that adds up to $13.8 million. And we would just bond the 13.8 is what we ran the numbers on. We'd pay cash for the balance, which isn't much, but just in case someone's worried my math didn't work. That would be paid back at $17.75 or $1.48 per 100,000. Those are the lines. Oh, sorry. And the mill rate would be at 3.16. A $14.2 million bond option funds Station 3, 4, 5, structural at 3, 3 quarters, 1 quarter for the crew, and also the maintenance facility. $14.2 million. There's how it would get paid back. And it would be $18.25 or $1.52. And the mill rate would be 3.21. The rate's higher in this category because the way we're funding the things it's just a recipe of how the whole thing gets funded. It creates more having to be funded by the bond, even though it's more money. It doesn't make sense exactly. Is there a better way to say that?
So we have more capital projects in this scenario, and more of them will be funded from our cash reserve rather than the bond. This is only a $400,000 increase in the bond versus the previous scenario.
All right, so the $17.9 million question that everyone's been here to talk so much about. We have an option to look at one bond question here. So we do one bond question where we ask for $17.9 million. Here's what everything is. It's everything we talked about with the addition now of telecommunications equipment added to the mix and the administration building renovation. $17.9 million. Here's how it gets funded. Three payments, or 3 dispersals rather. And this one here would be $21.20 per 100,000. So $1.77 per month per 100,000. So what was the first number that I gave? What was it, $9.9 million?
Yes.
What was it?
20 something.
It was $1.23 per month. Who remembers what that number was? 14 what? 14.75. Thank you. I appreciate that because that's what I thought it was. I didn't want to make sure I said that wrong. So we're less than $7 difference per month per 100,000. Now I'm not advocating for one number or the other number, but if you have $1 million home at assessed value, the difference between $9.9 million bond and $17.9 million bond on a $1 million assessed home is $70 difference. So if you have a $500,000 home, that'd be $35 difference. And if you lived in my house, that'd be like half of that. So it'd be about $1,750 more per year. There's the numbers there. You see the red bars are gone because most all that capital stuff is getting paid through the bond, shared across all those people over all those years. The mill rate's at $3.15 at that point. You do have an option board. If we wanted to split that 17.9, all the same projects we talked about, but just ask the voters, hey, for 9.9, which was station number 4, station number 5, and structural 3, is what adds up to $9.9 million. And then the remaining $8 million would be the telecom and other pieces that we had in there. That's where the two numbers come up. And so you could divide those two and create a two-part question to ask the public if that's what they wanted to do. That's what it funds. We talked about that. Here's how all the payments would go. It's actually more expensive to do the two-part question. Not a lot, but you got to do a bunch of add-ups. And just trust me, it's more. It's like $24 or $25 when you add if both of them passed. Okay, if both of them passed, it'd be more, and that's what it looks like. So my question to you is, how do we approach this bond? How do we understand how much is the right amount to request? And how do we communicate with the registered voters who will consider this bond? Questions there. Here's your timeline board. We have to make a decision by July 10th at the latest. This election is an all mail-in ballot. Communication options that we have with the voters and how that's going to happen. The community will certainly be out talking to more people in the community where we can, and deciding whether it's one or two questions. If you do go to the 17.9, all the other bond questions will be a one question ask. Must be a sign. Ballots will be mailed early October, and the election will be November 7th is when all the ballots are due. I will tell you, I believe this, even after everything that was said today. SFD stands for Sustainable Solutions, Fiscally Responsible, and Driven for Efficiency. Sustainable Solutions is one of the pillars of our daily operation. We must create a model that will stand the test of time and provide effective emergency services for our community. It's irresponsible to do anything less, in my mind. So being fiscally responsible is how I wake up every morning, making sure we're doing a good job, creating the trust that's needed to further our mission in our community, and apparently I need to do a better job at that. And I'm driven for efficiency. It's something that our government is most capable of being successful, especially at the local level. We can develop and implement ways to be much better, and we're committed to being the most effective organization we can be. Some folks have talked about what the Sedona Fire District is, what we've been, what we are, and I don't know that, rightfully so, the judgments that are made are based upon what's happening in today's world. And I encourage folks to have that conversation so I can understand what mark I'm missing or what we're missing as the Sedona Fire District. It's very, very vital for our success and for our ability to serve each and every one of you, because that's truly what we're dedicated to do. So with that, board, I went fairly quick through what we've already talked about a little bit. I open up to you for discussion and answer any questions you may have. We've heard from the folks today as to their thoughts on a $17.9 million bond, and I leave it to you. It's up to the board chair.
Well, you said you'd take questions. You
Oh,
better
I'm sorry.
get on to that.
From you, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yes, sir. Let me come out here real quick, then we'll get you on speaker here.
I appreciate your transparency with this briefing. I think it would be very helpful for some of us when you, if we could get a copy, if this is on email, if you could get this on email and ship it out to some of us that would like to study.
Name and where he lives, so I know the record.
Yeah.
Your name?
Ed Hanley.
Ed Hanley. Okay, thank you. Just so I have on the record. Mr. Hanley, all of our board meetings are videotaped up there, so people can watch this. They'll be posted likely, I'm not sure about tomorrow or maybe Monday. I know our IT guy just got married, so he's on his honeymoon. So everything's online on our YouTube page. All the minutes, all the handouts, everything gets posted as well. So they will be there for you to access at any time you like, and we're happy to give it to you. If you call me, I'll email it to you personally, and I will email it to you at any time of the day or night. I'm always available. My phone is always on. Any other questions for the board?
Chief, I have a question real
Sure.
quick. Through all your scenarios here, the mill rate ranges from 3.15 to 3.23. Again, for all the crowd out here, what is our current mill rate?
Current mill rate's $2.44.7.
Okay, thank you.
No, that's current. You said current. Is that what you asked me?
Yes.
And what's the annual factor that you put in? Is it 4%?
Well, as a self-imposed number, we look for around a 4% increase in our budget as a growth factor. That's fairly consistent and expected. Certainly, when we have things that we weren't expecting, like a PSPRS increase of 40%, that's nothing to do with Sedona Fire District. That helps increase those items, or that percentage rather. But we aim for a 4% increase is what we're aiming for. That said, when we can hit a 2%, that's great. We might hit a 5%, but if it's for service and we have a reason as to who, how, or why that happens, it has to be justified. And when it's justified, that's a decision the board makes whether or not they approve that budget. The staff creates the budget, and you approve the budget. The public has a chance to comment on the budget. It's the process that's set forth by law. And if working right, and we're all out for facts, it works well.
I don't have a question at this time, and that's because we've had so much opportunity in previous presentations to ask a question. But I do have a statement to make. I do remember a few years ago, I sat on this board, and the board was being asked to vote as to whether we would disband our dispatch center and move it to Cottonwood to save money. And I prefaced my vote by saying that I thought that was going to be the most important vote I would make on the tenure of being on the board. And I have to take that back because I actually feel that this vote is the most important. And that is because a vote for the bond would very much create fiscal solvency for the district so that they would not come up against the 325 mandated cap right now for a mill rate, looking ahead years to come, yet also address much of the deferred maintenance and some serious issues we have with some of our facilities. I want to say that the bond also catches my attention because of the vehicle of the intergenerational financing approach that it has. And to me, that means a lot as opposed to the pay-as-you-go. The intergenerational financing approach allows for people who live here to pay for what they're going to receive from the bond money. As those stations get rebuilt, our response time improves, and people who are here are paying for that, but they're getting it. In the pay-as-you-go, capital reserves is accumulated over time, and people who've paid for those capital reserve accumulations might move before they actually get to see the benefit from that money. So it appeals to me as a financing tool, the bond in general. The size of the bond, and I've given this a tremendous amount of thought ever since starting to attend some of the meetings of the bond committee. And where I settle is in the, keeping with that intergenerational concept, I would like to see bonded items that will be here in 20 years. So that would be all of the structural, attending to all of our structural needs. And that would be moving the station in the canyon to Slide Park. That would not only help our response times to the canyon, but it would lower the insurance rates for people living further deeper into the canyon because they'd be closer to a station. Rebuilding Uptown, which all of us have heard about for so many years, is a need, that building structurally unsound. Attending to the operations side of this station, which will also improve our response times, because right now the firefighters are pretty far away from their fire engines. Attending to structural needs in the village, and also adding a structure for maintenance to take place, which we do not have a very adequate structure for that right now. Now, all that costs $14.2 million. I would also be open to the $12.9 million approach that would leave off the maintenance. I've given this a lot of thought.
If I could ask one more comment, I want to just make sure also I did not mention this. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. This bond cannot pay for salaries. Is that correct, Mr. Stiefel?
It cannot pay for ongoing salaries. I believe it can pay for a salary of a facilities person who's overseeing the construction. That's about it.
So I just want to be clear that no one misunderstood or wasn't said that this is not, you can't use this to pay for firefighters or raises or anything like that. That's not what this is about at all. So I just want to be clear on that as well. I failed to mention that.
So I'll chime in. The concept of a bond to me is bricks and mortar. When you look at, you think of a bond, you're building a library, you're building a school, you're building a fire station. So my issue with this has been rolling in, rolling stock, even building upgrades, telecommunications. Some of that concerns me for the exact reason Corey just said. It's not necessarily 20-year or longer property. You know, when we build a fire station, I'm expecting that for 30 to 50 years that station's going to be there and providing service. How old is 4? Anybody remember the?
1971, I believe, or something like that. 70. It was like original building.
So it has,
71.
It has reached, and it was never designed as a fire station. I'm sorry.
I'd like to see the engineering report on the structural problems.
All right. Well,
we have a request for information that we'd be happy to share with anyone that'd like to share that. It's actually, Church, did we get that there's a book published online. Did we ever figure out how to get that large volume published online of the work, the committee? Oh, it's online. So, Mr. Blau, you can see it online if you go to sedonafire.org and check out the committee final report, and you'll scroll through. That's one of the addendums. I don't have it with me right now.
So I agree that Station 4 is a must do. I also agree Station 5 is a must do because the Garland family wants to end the lease that they've so generously granted us. So if we don't make arrangements, we will not have a station in the canyon. So those really are probably not negotiable, and we do not have $8 million in the budget to deal with that. So a bond has been the only option unless we look at long-term financing, which punishes the current taxpayers of the district. To that end, I'm looking more at the $12.9 million to do all bricks and mortar. Any other comments?
I have some comments. I have a question for Fire Chief. Chief Kazian, if I remember correctly, some of the improvements that do not have a life of 20 years, if I remember correctly, the concept was to structure a bond sale that would match their useful life. So that if you have something that only has a lifespan of, say, 7 years, then you would structure a bond sale that would not exceed that 7-year period of time. Is that correct?
That's correct. So in the scenario that I show you here, Okay, that's the bond repayment schedule for $12.9 million. But if we allocate 500,000 of that, or 600,000 for a fire truck, Stiefel and our attorney, Mr. DeHaan, would create a repayment schedule that says, hey, this chunk of money gets paid back in that 4 or 5 or 6 years or whatever that best practice is. The whole bond would be for 20. Other stuff would be getting paid. So more of it would get paid at the beginning of the bond for those items that have a shorter lifespan, and the longer lasting items would be being paid for really at the end of the life of that 20-year span.
Okay, so it's my understanding then, based on what you just said, that we would not be financing improvements over 20 years that had a shorter lifespan than that.
Correct. We would not be doing that. We're not allowed to do that by law.
Okay, another question. The $17.9 million, are all the projects and items that would be funded with the bond, are they eligible projects for bond funding?
Yes, they've all been run through council and through Stiefel, and they all meet the requirements of statutory requirements.
Well, as many of you know, by the way, I'm really disappointed in the audience that so many of you that stood up at this podium and spoke in opposition to the bond left before you heard all the facts. I do thank the ones that decided to stay, because hopefully you have more information now before you make your decision. So I'm really disappointed in the ones that walked out of the room. I was the chair of the Citizens Bond Committee, and the committee went through, I believe, almost 3 months of meetings and a tremendous amount of information and research and presentations, and there was a lot of discussion around the table, back and forth, on what should be included, what should not be included. And from my perspective, the Citizens Bond Committee made a solid recommendation to this board. And from my perspective, I support the $17.9 million going forward with that. I think the voters deserve the opportunity to decide whether or not they support that amount of money. Now, if there were some way that we could structure the bond issue, the bond election, so you had a couple questions on there where you could maybe break it up into 2 different questions, so they would have the opportunity to vote for a smaller package if they wanted to, I would be supportive of that. But I support the $17.9 million.
Mr. Chair, Chief, after reviewing all the options that you've given us, and I would like to comment on the one item that was mentioned, that Fire Station 4 was built as a fire station. I have no doubt that it was. Although at the time that it was built, as compared to today's apparatus that are longer, taller, wider, and heavier, it's taken its toll on that station, and that's pretty obvious after we got the engineering report on it, and we were able to see what damage has been done. So the need is there. But as I look at all the programs or options that we have here, the $26 million in improvements that need to be done is astronomical. We've cut back and looked at 18 or 17.9 million. That's $8 million off of that bond, paid over that 20 or upwards of 30 years at a cost, as you described here, that is, I would think, pretty affordable for most all of us here. I am leaning towards the 17.9 as you described here. I do believe, as our chairman, Mr. Montgomery, has said, that it sounds to me that bonds should be a bricks and mortar kind of program to pay for those things that we truly, truly need. Unfortunately, technology moves faster than we can provide money for, and this gives us an opportunity to pay for some of those electronic technical aspects or equipment that we need. So it's my opinion that I would be in favor of the 17.9 at this point.
I also favor the $17.9 million bond issue. The members of the committee spend a lot of time analyzing data for many months, did a lot of tours, various stations. and I feel that it's something that we need, and it needs to be done, and I suggest we go ahead with that.
Mr. Chair, if there's any further discussion you'd like to have, or if 17.9 is an issue that is going to be considered, we do have to have a discussion about the one bond question or two bond question issue that would relate there. So I will leave that again to you to decide how you'd like to proceed, but that would be a part two of this conversation if it
Well,
moves
Tim,
towards.
can I defer to you to kind of explain better or more, or maybe you want to defer to Stiefel to explain?
Maybe I'll just defer to Stiefel, and I can add some comments if you like.
About the one or two question piece?
Just explain
Sure.
in a little more detail what the one or two question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm Mike LaValle with the investment bank Stiefel. We do work all across the state, all across the country, working with rural and local municipal entities, along with large cities and towns as well, and state agencies. Bill DeHaan is also here from Greenberg Traurig, and so he can speak to the legality of two questions. You can certainly have two questions. You can have three or four. The more you do, I would say, would create the more confusion. But if you wanted to split it up into two, and it seemed like the 9.9 is your most critical number, but then you wanted to also have the voters vote on the additional amount, I guess it's about 8 million. If you had two questions, you could certainly do it. The voters will then have two lines to vote on, 9.98. You really will hope that they know that the 9.9 is the higher priority one, and then if they wanted to vote for the 8, which is additional second priority, but yet really needed over the next 5 to 10 years. One of the risks, I think about risks, one of the risks of that is they vote for the 8 million, and they don't vote for the 9.9. They vote for the smaller number and not give you the 9.9, which is really the more urgent projects. So there's a little bit of risk, from at least my point of view, as it relates to having two questions. But that is something you can certainly do, and perhaps educate the public on before the actual vote. From a legal standpoint, I don't know, Bill, if you wanted to add to that, or did I do a good enough job? No, okay.
That answer your question?
My question.
Okay.
Well, yes, and it answers a question and creates a new question. I can certainly see that that could happen.
Board, and to be clear, you could, not to confuse things here today, where's the lawyer at? Paying attention? I mean, you do have an option if you wanted to, you don't have to do a 9.9 and a 9. You could do I'm not sure what you guys were at, 12.9 or 14.2 or wherever you were at. You could do that number if that's what everyone can agree on, and you can do the balance as a second question too. It does not have to be, but you would run the risk of the lower one making it, and the lower that second question is, the less helpful it is to get to where we're trying to go with our needs.
If we were to go the two-question route, I would think it'd be very, very important to do 12.9 as the first question, because I'm concerned about the critical need with the things that are included in the 12.9 that will keep our response times good. And our response times are so critical when a person is having a heart attack or when a building is on fire. Just recently, just this weekend, I believe we had a vehicle, a balloon that carries the hot air balloon equipment and some propane tanks. And somehow there was mismanagement. Well, I shouldn't say that. Somehow there was a fire that got created from probably one of the propane tanks. And the whole vehicle got on fire, and it was down at Red Rock, at Dry Creek Road, actually. And it was close to brush, and brush catches fire very quickly in this temperatures. And if it wasn't for the fast response of our firefighters, we could have had a real disaster on our hands, because then housing is there as well. So that response time matters, and the items in 12.9, most of them do keep our response times good and even improve them. So if we were going to do two questions, I'd be for the The minimum, the first question being 12.9.
I think I'm gonna be against 2 questions, just for that exact reason, because you're gonna potentially have the 12.9 and a 3.5 or whatever that comes out to be. And then, because if the bond doesn't pass, we're going to have to figure out a way to lease purchase or finance the stations, which unfortunately, like I said, is gonna punish the current taxpayers. Because the buildings we have to, at least those 2 buildings have to be dealt with urgently. I would be very afraid that the 2 questions would confuse the issue, and we could wind up in a position we don't want to be in.
That's my concern too, Mr. Chair.
But again, if you had 12.9 and 3.5, and you got the 3.5.
I see. That, what I'm saying is I share your concern. I'm not really in favor of 2 questions.
Well, I think we've heard, it's been going on for several months now. I think we are where we are. Does anybody feel like they want to make a motion?
Well, go ahead. Well, Mr. Chair, I would move that we direct the fire chief to move forward with the necessary steps to put a question before the voters for improvements, capital improvements funded through a bond issue, and an amount not to exceed $17.9 million.
Does your motion include an approval of Resolution 2017-05?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any further discussion?
The discussion, it's a further comment that that I'm concerned about that high of a bond number, as much as I do appreciate my 3 fellow board members honoring the committee and the committee recognizing the needs of the critical needs of our district. I'm just concerned about that size. I certainly don't want to vote no on a bond because I very much want a bond. I'm wondering if there's any give on any of the 3 of you, or are you feeling firm about your that higher amount, that 17, 18, said not to exceed 18?
Well, the amount not to exceed 17.9, I feel very confident on that. I think the items described by the Citizens Committee identify those things of the highest priority, and that of technology and apparatus that we need to get us back to where we should be. That's I won't say that that's bare bones, but that's what we need to get to where we should be. And anything less than that will start to affect the mill rate and the taxpayer within our community in order to pay for those less priority things. And it puts us back in that position where every one of our community members will be here now looking at a raised or an increase in a mill rate. And as it is, this gives us a package over a lengthy period of time so as to have a minimal impact on our taxes. It's a fine balance between do we pay for this and keep the mill rate low through a bond, or do we lower the bond, go as a pay-go, and increase the mill rate? And that's the juggling act that we have. And I think all the facts and figures that we've seen here today would indicate that the 17.9 would be to our in our best interest.
The reason I'm for a hybrid approach of addressing our structural needs, not only because of that intergenerational financing approach, but also because I want the bond to pass. And I'm concerned that that we risk no bond if we go with the that higher amount.
Mr. Chair, I think if I heard the motion right, you made reference to 17.9 and approval of the resolution. The resolution by reference attaches the official ballot, which technically references 18, not 17.9. So I think probably it would be appropriate for you to amend your motion to either go from 17.9 to 18, or to amend the official ballot, which is an exhibit to the resolution, to make it reflect 17.9. I think you ought to do one or the other. Either amend the attachment to the resolution or amend your motion to go to a full not to exceed 18.
Which would you like?
I would like to amend my motion to go to an amount not to exceed 18 million.
Do you need to approve that amendment and vote on the motion?
And board, Bill DeHaan's here too if you had a question or needed a different language for the question, right? Is that?
Well, I have the form of resolution here. I can fix it on my laptop and print it out for everybody. Just get direction from the board as to the number to use.
All right, well, point of housekeeping. You're voting to amend your motion, or amend the resolution to not to exceed 18 million?
It already is not to exceed 18. His motion was 17.9.
So you're amending your motion to not to exceed 18 million.
To match.
To match that. And then our
resolution.
second, that was you, Dave?
Yes.
Your second? Okay. So I'm going to agree with Corey that I'm in favor of the bond. I just am not in favor of it at 17.9 million.
Can I have the floor for a second? I need some clarification, either from Bill or from you then, Chief, if you might. The resolution makes reference to the official ballot, which reads not to exceed 18. The chief just mentioned that the actual number is 17.9.
Well, if that's what the board is saying, so if we're voting on the official resolution with the official language that is going to be approved, I believe it would best be said 17.9, not to exceed 18 million in the official ballot. If we're approving the official language on the ballot right now,
Yes,
we would want it to say 17.9.
I think that's all right.
So however, you need to amend that.
Then let's work on this motion for a moment. The official ballot, which is referenced as an attachment to the resolution, refers to the number 18 million, not 17.9. Are you suggesting that the form of official ballot, which is to be attached as an exhibit to the resolution, should actually be amended to read 17.9 instead of 18?
If that's the number the board would like to go with, then it should, yeah, an amendment is appropriate.
So, all right, I'm gonna suggest, Mr. Chair, with Bill's indulgence, then, that there's a motion on the floor to approve a 17.9 number and approve the resolution. You can include in your motion an action item to amend the attachment to the resolution to so reflect. Or you can restate your motion to move it up to 18. But you need to do one or the other. Is that consistent with what you're suggesting, Chief?
What I'm saying is that the official ballot question should say 17.9. So however the amendment to the motion to address the amendment to the resolution as a non-lawyer,
okay,
please make that happen. That's why we pay you.
All right. Then your motion as it stands has a 17.9 number in it and approval of the resolution. So you may want to add to your motion an amendment to the official ballot so that it reflects 17.9 instead of 18.
Okay, do I do that now?
Yes.
And so I would like to add to my motion an amendment to the official ballot to reflect the $17.9 million amount.
You need a second on that, Mr. Chair.
And I'll second that.
So we have a motion on the floor. We've had comments. We'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? Okay, 3-2 passes. Okay. Engagement letter with Mr. DeHaan. This was reviewed in executive session. I believe we just need to approve the letter. Is that right, Mr. Whittington?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Somebody would like to make a motion for that? When you find it.
get that page number?
Mr. Chair, technically it's referred to as an engagement letter.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's
if we've got-
page 40, I believe, on your, at least, Mr. Whittington, that's the draft engagement letter?
Yes.
Okay, that's page 40.
There we go, I found it, I'll make the motion. I move to approve the engagement letter with William DeHaan of Greenberg Torrig for legal counsel services for the bond election process and future bond-related needs as presented.
Second?
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Was that unanimous?
Unanimous. And then, decision to mail optional notice of election to voters. As you know, there is the option to mail a voter pamphlet with, in some elections, it's required by law. In fire district elections, it is not required. So we have the option of whether we want to pay for a voter pamphlet that would go out before the election, or we would want to post information on our website or throughout the community through fact sheet, which has been done by other districts in the state. After I spoke with Mr. DeHaan, he indicated it goes about 50-50, is that right?
Yeah.
That districts will undertake the cost of printing and sending out the voter pamphlet versus just printing the information up and distributing it through other channels. So I'll put it to the board to discuss and decide, because we do need to make that decision part of the bond election. It needs to be decided by July 10 of whether we would want to have that formal voter pamphlet or we would want to do a more informal campaign of education.
Mr. Chairman, I would recommend to the board that we do both. I think in the interest of transparency to the voters, I think the pamphlet is important, but I also think that a fact sheet prepared by the district or whoever would also be very important in educating the public about the bond election and the critical needs of this district.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'd agree also. The voter pamphlet is an essential part of getting the word out and allowing the voters an opportunity to voice their opinion on to an extent. Also, with that, a fact sheet that we can post on our website. So I would be in favor of the voter pamphlet.
Okay. Any other comments? Or?
I agree with that. In my opinion, the more informed the voters are, the better off we are. And if we can send both materials out, it will be to everybody's benefit.
And just for definition or more understanding about what a fact sheet is, it's usually perhaps one-sided, where the amount of the bond, what it's going to be used for, how many years it's going to be in existence, and some of the cost to the taxpayers per $100,000 worth of valuation of their home. So that would be the fact sheet.
Okay, and estimated cost for the voter pamphlet was $4,000?
I think we got a quote that it'd be about $4,000, yes.
Does that include postage?
The county sends it out, it's shared across how many of our people are doing election stuff or whatever, so it's an estimate. It has to be translated in Spanish, so there's a cost for that. The information I got was about $4,000, and I thought that was a all-inclusive package price. It wasn't a quote, it was just an estimation.
If it's, well, the postage is my question now, because items that come from the election commission don't have postage.
Well, then that might be your answer. I don't know, I've never done this before, so.
Do you know?
Yes, there is a postage charge.
Okay.
I can't find it on my email to confirm what the exact line items are. That came up to about $4,500. It was what it was.
Mr. DeHaan or Mr. Stiefel, from other districts, do you have any idea what kind of cost that would be?
Every district is different because your number of registered voters are different than any other district, so I don't know. I don't know offhand what the county charges for postage. I apologize. They gave us a list and we sent it to the chief, and we ballparked that number based on what we knew. However, it's until the decision is made and the chief tells them we need a voter pamphlet, and they can calculate it, the real costs, because we were using estimated costs from a fact sheet from the county. So, again, it's just an estimate.
Board, we have about 13,000 registered voters, as I recall the number, just for point of reference. I don't think they duplicate. They get one per home, so if there's multiple people at the same address, I think it's just one that shows up.
I think it's per house per address.
Yeah, so wherever that number, that's what I'm saying, the estimates, going off the number of registered voters is tough, because, if they're, all two-person houses, that cuts the mailing in half. If it's, so it's, no one really knows until they do it. They get the price, and then we share that price across everyone who has information in that voter information pamphlet. So the more people in it, the less it costs you, and the less people in it, the more it costs you.
Okay, well, any other discussion? That if we want to do the pamphlet, you just have to understand that'll be a cost that's borne in there.
I do believe in terms of transparency, which is really the issue. We want voters to be informed before they put their check mark, so to speak, on their ballot. And I do think the fact sheet would provide that information, because it has all the details of the bond and where the money will be going to and the cost to the taxpayer per year for it. And it doesn't have the cost that the pamphlet would.
Okay, further discussion, or anybody want to make a motion?
Board, right now I'm looking at the information we received, and that was VIP printing. The voter information pamphlet printing was $2,800. The mailing is $849. I assume that's the postage. And the VIP translation is approximately $262 for a total of $3,935.
Thank you.
As an estimate, yes, it's absolutely an estimate. It's just the number that was given to us.
Okay. Anybody feel like they want to make a motion?
I'll move to direct the fire chief to include, as part of the bond election process, a voter pamphlet that would go out to all of the registered voters in the district.
No, we don't know what it is, so there's not a not to exceed moment. There's money budgeted for all the costs associated with it, so.
Okay, is there a second?
Second that.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, financial report. You stepping in for Gabe?
I am.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, just to reintroduce myself, I'm Melissa Tomlinson from the James Vincent Group, pitch hitting for
Microphone there, sorry.
Gabe
Yeah.
today. All right, thanks. You have in your board packets the full financial report for the month of May. I just wanted to go over some highlights here. Okay, so for the month of May, our tax levy was $609,734, and this is under budget by $448,000. This is mostly because of timing. If you'll recall, last month we were over budget by about $300,000. Timing compared to our historical collections, year to date we're actually over by $290,000. Non-tax levy for the month was $218,914, which is over by $38,000. Personnel expenses for the month were $915,640, which is under by 58,573. Vehicles and equipment for the month were 103,691. Utilities 19,176. Managerial 58,332, which is under budget by 33,187. Capital and contingency was 66,825, which is under by 81,660. Year to date. So year to date, our total revenue is $14,717,786. This is over budget by $311,000. And this is again because of the timing of our tax receipts and also because of our wildland revenue. Personnel expenses are $10,024,656. We're under budget on this by $691,000. And again, that's because of the way that the budgeting was done by month, and I expect that we'll see that variance shrink in the month of June. Vehicles and equipment are at $550,350, under by $373,000. Utilities and communication, $110,000. Managerial, $874,000, and capital and contingency at $1.2 million. So year to date, our total expenses are actually under by $157,000. Here's a breakout of how our expenses are broken out by category. Our personnel expenses, as you would expect, are at 77%, which is pretty consistent from month to month, followed by capital and contingency, and then operations and managerial. Our cash position, you can see in the column on the left, our cash position is up. It's $6.5 million compared to $5.5 this time last year, so we're about $1 million over. And this is a great position to be in with the PSPRS payouts that are coming, as well as the capital fund that we're looking to begin funding. Are there any questions? All right, if there are no other questions, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Melissa. I need a motion to approve financial report.
I move to approve the financial report for May of 2017.
Second.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so coming back to discuss the Hall Parker issue that we discussed. Was there something to approve on this?
You already have. You gave direction by consensus.
Okay, so the chief will proceed as directed in executive session?
Not an executive.
Oh, at the 2 o'clock meeting?
Yes.
They're running together on me. Okay, in the meeting we had at 2 o'clock, the open meeting we had on the PSPR's Hall Parker issue, we gave direction for the chief to proceed with the lowest interest cost for us to resolve that issue.
Copy that.
Okay, update on the DHS ambulance rate adjustment.
DHS report.
What?
Update on the DHS report.
Yeah, so, good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Apologize that I'm not there in person, but just want to give you a quick update. We did get the findings and analysis from the state on our report that we prepared. If you remember, we requested an ALS and BLS base rate of $1,540.17 and a mileage rate of $18.76. After the Bureau did their analysis, what they determined is the base rate we were requesting was okay and reasonable, but the mileage rate was a little high given our mileage expense. So what they do, though, is they try to ensure that the organizations that apply for the general rate increase receive the amount of money that they requested. So they lowered our mileage rate to $13.01, but increased our ALS and BLS rate to $1,628.78. And essentially what that kind of equates to us from a bottom line standpoint, assuming same call volume as we did in FY16, the district would realize an increase in ambulance revenues of $150,000. And when I say an increase in revenues, that's of course an increase in net collectible revenues, not gross. Obviously, there's statutory adjustments that get applied to our gross revenues. The status, or kind of the position we're in now with the state, is we did tell them that we accept their rates and do not need to go to hearing on this. So they have posted for notice of waiver of hearing, and then within 30 days, the director should sign the order changing our rates, and we will be billing at our new rate going forward.
All right. Any discussion or comments?
Could you ask him to repeat what we asked for and what we got?
Great.
Can you help us out with what we requested and what we got? Maybe just a net difference, because I guess we got paid higher on one and less on the other, but it's a net positive. I don't know. Does that answer your question, Dave? You want exact specifics to?
Well, there was two figures: what we requested for an increase in ambulance billing, I guess.
Okay.
And what the mileage was, and then what we received because the mileage was too high.
Okay.
So essentially, we requested $1,540 for our base rate and mileage rate of $18.76. That equates to $4.9 million. The Bureau, through their analysis, suggested that, you know what, the mileage rate is probably too high given your vehicle expenses. So a more reasonable way to receive this income, because again, the Bureau is charged with ensuring, it's charged with setting rates and also ensuring the rates are reasonable. And so as part of their analysis, they determined that the request for the higher mileage rate was not as reasonable, but still the increase in rate was justified, and thereby gave us the difference in our in our base rate. So with the Bureau's recommended rate of $1,628 and a mileage rate of $13.01, we're still realizing a net revenue of $4.99 million. So their analysis did not change our projected gross revenue increase of $4.9 million.
Thank you, Gabe. That's what I was looking for.
Perfect.
Okay, thanks, Gabe. No action needed on this item. This is
No, it was just an update. We had lengthy discussion as we were discussing how much to charge, the base rate and all that type of stuff. So we have an outcome we wanted to at least follow up with you, keep you well informed of alternate revenue sources, which we're bringing in with an estimation of an additional $150,000 worth of revenue through ambulance transport or services.
Okay. All right, that takes us to monthly staff report, Chief.
All right, board, thank you for your time. I know it's a long meeting today. I appreciate all your attention to detail and working through the difficulties of addressing all the things we've done thus far. On to the response stuff. Month of May, we ran 393 calls. It's interesting that that's the most number of calls, and you look at the response time was dramatically reduced at 5 minutes and 39 seconds. Continuing to refine that. That doesn't mean next month will be 6 minutes and 39 seconds because, again, it's not the be all end all. It's a positive trend, and I like that, but it's just understand it's not everything. The numbers all look pretty good and in line with what we're doing, other than we've had a pretty significant, I would say, amount of rescues. We've been out quite a bit on hike outs and rescues. I see we did 10 backcountry rescues compared to 1 last year for this time period. And it feels like Battalion Chief Cochran's here. You have 2 today already? And yesterday, 3, 4? I mean, we did 10 probably in 3 days, I bet. We're pretty close, to that number. So, anyway, that's where we are. you can see where we're trending and where we're at. Nothing on grants. You know, we keep looking at the grant situation. No news is good news in some ways, but you know, at some point we want to hear, like, you know, if we got an apparatus in there for $300,000, it would be really nice to take that off our list of the things we just talked about. Again, it's alternate ways that we're looking at reducing the impact to the taxpayer and being responsible as a manager and leader of this organization. The firefighters and the staff who write those grants and spend that time is very competitive, and they take the time to do that. Well, some people might be watching this video still. Remember, these calls in this next box are the calls that initiate in that response area. That does not mean that one of those stations does not go to a different response area. So those are the breakout. It is what it is, and each station is very busy, all things being considered, and working to protect the town and keep the bases covered, so to speak. Donations are there as you see.
Chief, excuse me for
Oh,
one
sorry.
second. Is there any reason why that pie chart with incident counts can't include those calls that station goes on outside their district for a total call volume?
Oh, yeah, we're already working on creating that report. Assistant Chief Pacher has been very busy working through the fire stats program that we use. He's close to wizardry status, or what's your... we're creating a data package for folks. You know, I guess I'd request, tell us everything you want from us, because I think what's going to happen is everything that we don't say that's on there, someone's going to have a question about what's still not on there. Okay. You know, what about this? I think it's a very great question, and certainly something we can do, and we're happy to do. I just, you know, let me know what we're missing.
If I recall correctly, we had that report at one point. We took it out because there were accusations that we were showing calls coming from Station 6 that weren't in Station 6's district. I'd suggest that you show it both ways.
Yeah. Okay. So when you do the data part of this, and Jeff, help me out if I missed this, Mark, or you can add to it, please. You know, in some cities, they talk about every run, and I don't know how you did it in LA, but every time that engine went out, that's a run for that engine. At the end of the year, they tabulate all the runs that department did. Well, they may have 1 million runs with 100,000 incidents. Those are two completely different numbers, but that's the way they tabulate it. So you're always going to have this question as to how you, and is each unit is, you know, so there's just different ways to slice the pie, being transparent as we can. Those are the actual numbers of calls that happen in those still districts. There's no disputing that number, that fact at all. But adding where they went to, or how many times they went, or whatever it is, we're certainly happy to do that as well. And any other way we can show you that the fire department is not sitting around waiting for going to the grocery store to put the ambulance, you know, groceries in the ambulance, and which too also I don't believe we found. Is that correct? DHS does not have a rule or policy on that, Ed. Is that correct? DHS, do they have a rule on ambulance food in the ambulance? Is that a law?
I solicited like districts for their policies as well as the state. There's no statute that governs food in or around ambulances. However, many departments, because of health and safety needs, say don't put food where you carry dirty people. So, but there's nothing in statute.
We certainly, we certainly, you know, don't want to, the firefighters don't want their food to be in the back of the ambulance where there could be something. I think, so they're pretty careful with that stuff, but anyway, I digress.
The only exception we make is we have commercially sealed bottles of Gatorade and water, and we have a refrigerated compartment in the back for the drug box. And in the summertime, guys will slide sealed Gatorade bottles in there so they have fluids, but that's okay.
So anyway, I digress. Community risk management, anything you want to say where you're going in community risk management right now, John?
Just doing a lot of exciting things. Doing a lot of exciting things, and trying to shift our focus more to the assembly occupancies and short-term residential residencies, just because that's where our high life loss potential is. So we're making some great strides there.
So board, I just want to reiterate what John just said, and that is we're continually looking at our operation and finding ways to improve the service that we do. And as Chief Pichura comes to the table as an assistant chief in operations, as the fire marshal comes in, as I came in, we evaluate processes. As Gabe's come in, we evaluate processes, we find best practices, and it takes time to turn that ship around a bit. And we're making great headway in CRM, we're making great headway in operations, and I think as an organization, we're making great headway at doing all the things that we can do to continue to improve our service as an organization. Training is continuing to be a very important part of our existence here. It always is. And with that, pretty run-of-the-mill training opportunities. I don't see anything super highlighted here, although we did host the fire stats class here with the true master of fire stats, and certainly helped to be able to tap into that and have a four-day class here on how to do statistics and things like that. So pretty important stuff there. Some nice colorful cards thanking us for what we do. Some greatly appreciate the hard work of all the hard working people that are here providing that service, and we appreciate those kind words. And I don't know if I have anything else on the chief's report. Stand by, I just have to look at my agenda. Oh, that was the wrong way to go. Stand by. First time at the dispatch. Jeff, anything on dispatch?
We just ran a report on dispatch call processing from the time that Cottonwood receives the call to the time we receive the call in the fire station. It's reduced 1 minute since last year. So, and we ran it in a quarterly, actually every third month, 3 months of data batches we ran, and it showed incremental improvements each time. So from last year to this date, 1 minute improvement in call processing.
That's very, very good.
Yeah, we've been working with them, and it's been a really good relationship, and they've seen the standard, and again, we're still building on best practice. The only piece that we're still kind of working on is the transfer time from law enforcement PSAPs to Cottonwood. We have no control on that one other than trying to get our police law enforcement agencies that are handling PSAPs to help facilitate that transfer sooner. So we're working on that avenue now.
But they're to be commended.
Oh, indeed.
Cottonwood's to be commended for that. That's a big improvement.
Yeah, what is really cool, I hear the speaker, is they're seeing the data. They're seeing the data as well. And so what they see, they can actually improve upon. And we can break it down into day and hour of the day. So they can see who's dispatching. So it helps them out tremendously. So it's all good stuff.
So it's that partnership we have with them. It's continuing to grow the fire stats we have and allowing them access to that information. It's really you help me, I help you, and the results we're getting and things are encouraging, and everything is great. So I think I'm glad Jeff shared that with us, and we were able to share that with you. The last thing I was going to talk about is wildland right now. Wildland, just update, we've got a few folks out. We've had a lot of folks out, actually. Been really, really busy in the entire state. All of the resources in the Verde Valley have pretty much had someone out fighting wildland fires. So we have people at the Fry Fire right now that just went out yesterday, 4 people there. We have at the Highline Fire, we have Coil and just Coil now, to the other unit.
Type 3.
And Type 3, right. I thought there was another one. And Type 3 there with Captain Ojeda. And that's it right now. That's all we have out, correct? So that's 8. We got 8 folks out fighting wildland fires right now, but there's a lot over the state right now, and certainly worried about the weather conditions we have right now. More lightning coming and things like that over the next couple weeks. Is that correct, Chief Cochran? Come on.
Just real quick, just to emphasize the importance of us going out on wildland fires. We have our Fireline Medic program, which they were up on the Boundary Fire recently. I don't know if you guys heard this. Our firefighters, because we have the ATV capability and response, were highly sought after. They had somebody who was doing structure protection who fell off a ladder. Their leg got stuck to the ladder. They fell down. Their leg broke to where the bones were sticking out. Our guys were able to get there to where they were within 9 minutes and they were able to fly the firefighter out, and they were able to reach the hospital in just over an hour, which is like unheard of in the wildland. In fact, they're doing a evaluation of it, of having medics available on wildland incidents, and our guys are going to be part of that I guess, process. So they've already done a bunch of interviews with that. Likewise, the crew that's down on the Fry Fire now, it's part of our REMS team, which are technical rescue guys. And it's called a rapid extrication module. And that north end of the fire, which is heading towards Safford, is inaccessible, and they're not able to get people out, so they won't staff that part of the fire, which is one of the reasons they requested our team to go down there. So now they're down there, they're able to staff that part of the fire and make progress. So we're really kind of at the tip of the spear, and the chief's talked about things that we've evaluated and seen within our district, but we've also done that in the wildland arena, and we're starting to make impacts regionally and then also out of region. So,
and just to double tag on it, this will now be, you know, because of that call, the third fire season in a row. One of our medic teams has hit the national stage as far as follow up on the incident they were involved with because of how they performed. So it's kind of cool.
I ask that everyone be safe in today's the weather we have right now. Continue to do that. We had a great program in May, which was after the board meeting in May. The wildland cleanup, we had a good turnout and helped a bunch of people remove the brush of their home and make their home fire-wise. So that was good. Defensible space is critical. And I just want to tag on. Are you going to talk about the balloon fire at all or no? No. Well,
go ahead.
Let's make sure I don't take your thunder on your safety note. So quick response by fire department, excellent. Okay. Also, just the actions of the people were there, realizing that the home where the fire occurred in was heavily wooded, and they actually drove the trailer on fire to get it out of the wooded area. And a day like yesterday, if we would have got a start, would have been considerable in that area. And so I just want to give kudos to the quick thinking workers that were there, as well as the quick response from the fire department. I have nothing else on the chief's report at this time, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Item 3, discussion possible action, JBG Group.
Board, this is the purchase order for James Vincent Group to continue on as our finance director. The cost for the actual monthly fee is the same. However, just due to some structural agreements or structural operational issues with JVG and their ability to provide the services of which they're being recommended or asked to do are sometimes outside the scope of what they're really pricing their monthly fee at. So they just included the audit fee, which was part of their agreement last year as well, and additional costs for us to be able to do work on things like the bond and run scenarios. And I've been talking to Melissa 11 o'clock at night. So we've been working hard at getting these things done, and it's a part of that. And I don't know if Gabe has anything else he wants to add, or Melissa has anything else to say.
Members of the board, I think Chief covered it very well. It's really allows us the mechanism as a business as things go above and beyond what we envision them to be on a regular basis. That ability for us to recoup our costs on that. But I do want to make it clear to the board that it's based on the chief asking for something. It's not just based on us arbitrarily deciding to build the district on an hourly basis. It's, hey, chief, this is something that's kind of approaching that out of the scope, and giving him an estimate, an idea of cost, so he can then effectively